Checking the
Welcome to another Facebook Live Meet the Podcasters. I'm Diane Ray, co-founder of MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network, and we are so excited to be introducing you, listeners out there, to our amazing podcasters on the network. We've got some incredible people and great topics and just things to help you. Like, we really want to help you with, contemporary spirituality, support you in these crazy times. And we've got some amazing podcasters to introduce you to. So today I'm excited because this particular podcaster was introduced to me by a mutual friend in radio. Her name's Julie Guy. Maybe she'll show herself sometime today. And Julie said, I just had an incredible reading with this medium, Helen Peacock, and you have to talk with her. So I did, and Helen is here with us, and Spirit Chat is a podcast on the network, and Helen joins us from Canada. So welcome, Helen. I'm so thankful that we could jump on today.
Thank you, Diane, for having me. I'm feeling so excited about this show.
Well, we'll have some fun.
Yes, and a big shout out to Julie. Yes, I have to say that myself. Yes.
if she's out there, my rock and roll friend from my radio days, but
Bon
she was
Jovi.
blown away. Yeah, Bon Jovi,
exactly.
Days.
Yeah.
She was blown away by the reading and the connections that you made for her. And I was like, okay, we got to get Helen on the network. So Spirit Chat is up. You've got some podcasts up. So for people that aren't familiar with your work, I know you have a great following in Canada, but we're excited to introduce you to a lot of listeners all over the States, all over the world, really. We get people grabbing podcasts from all over the place. So I understand that your grandmother had psychic abilities and your aunt had psychic abilities. So when did yours kick in? When did you realize that you had mediumship and psychic abilities?
Well, I was not your typical medium where you see dead bodies, dead spirits walking around at 5 years of age. More for me was, as a child, I was a very strong empath. Like, I could really feel and sense for others. And again, thinking that everyone else felt the same way. I was very creative, very tapped into the metaphysical world. I was always intrigued. You could say that I was one of those where I had a very wild imagination, very, very creative in that sense. But a lot of it kicked in for me when my grandmother passed away. So it's almost like she passed the gift down. And from her being very Catholic, that was very well hidden. And speaking with other psychics back, way, way back, they had informed me through my grandmother's gifts was more through her dreams. So she received information through her dream state, but she was very much, shall I say, very religious, very, very religious Catholic wise. My great aunt on my mother's side, that's the Irish side of my family. She was known as a very famous tea leaf reader. So there's that.
Interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
it kind of runs through the family. Were you the girl at the slumber party with the tarot cards? Because
No. There was talk. I remember once there was talk of a Ouija board, but no, nothing like that. My mother is very intuitive as well, but she chose to kind of push that aside. Like, she would always tell me stories where, when her grandmother passed away, like, she would see her grandmother at the end of her bed. Also, when I was younger, one of my first jobs was working with her. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Niagara-on-the-Lake, but it's just on the other side. It's a very touristy area outside Niagara Falls, and they have very old homes and mansions. And so my mother was a supervisor of a cleaning crew, and I took that job on part-time, through the holiday season, summer, winter times. And my mother would actually she would see dead people. She would have conversations with them, right? So very tapped in, but she doesn't choose to use it in any other form as in helping others or anything. It's just more her own. So.
And what does she think about you doing this?
Oh, she's very excited about it. She's
it?
always promoting me all the time. I'll never forget when she first saw me doing it, like live, when I was doing like a live event. She was just like, whoa. And the same thing with my stepmom at the time. Like, I'll never forget. I always wanted to get her appraisal. And she was married to my dad for 40 years. And so when she came to see me do my first like real live event, there was probably maybe about 150 people in the audience. And I'll never forget what she said to me at the end. And all she said was, just, wow, I just wish it didn't have to end. And in that moment, it just took my heart, took my breath away to actually hear those words from her. So,
What validation.
well, it is because you want to be accepted. Growing up, people just thought I was weird or, just didn't believe in anything. Like I even remember when I was like I think it was like grade 7. And I knew it was within me because we had to do this carnival, and each student had to come up with their own event for the school carnival. So there was this girl, I think it's okay to say her name, but even her name, Sandy Sawatsky. And so it was, of course, it was my wild imagination. So I decided, let's be psychics. So we got together this tent and we took some tin foil and created some silver balls and put stars and moons on the ceilings. And then we handed out tickets, and then kids would come to the tent, and I had my little podium there. And I just tapped in. And apparently I knew some stuff about these kids, you know,
Wow.
but I also knew their siblings. So so I was
Very creative.
but it worked, and that was, like, in grade 7. So, you know that it's instilled in me right there and then, so, yeah.
Well, I know a big part of mediumship is helping people with grief, making these healing connections. And, your podcast is Spirit Chat. So you're making these connections. And what have you learned about the spirit world and interacting with them and the kind of help and healing that can take place when you're making those connections? What's that been like?
Well, I think the number one thing I take away from all of this is that the loved ones want to communicate. Like, they do want to have the conversation still continue, and for their loved ones to believe that there is an afterlife. And so when I can bring that validation to those who are grieving, who come to see me, like that just makes my day. But I just say it makes their day, even though they don't have days. But it's like I like to call it's like a three-way call, and I'm the bridge in that call. And so, when I say that it's important that everybody knows that there is an afterlife and that you can communicate with them as well. Anybody can do what I do. We're all intuitive. It's our birthright. I don't want to use the word psychic. It just has that tone to it that people just go, ooh, it's woo woo. And it's like, no, we are all gifted and we can all do what I do. It's just a matter of trusting. That's basically what it is trusting what you're receiving and know that they are trying to communicate with you. So.
Right. And strengthening it. And there's ways that you can do
Oh,
that.
here's my thing. Have fun with it. Have fun with your loved ones in spirit. That's what they want, because when you want to connect with them, you want to make sure that you're in a high frequency, you're in a high vibration. So I always say to my clients, if you want to have that connection, think of the good memories, the good times, what makes you laugh, because again, it raises your frequency and then they're able to lower theirs. And then you're able to have that connection. Right. So people get excited about that. But here's the other thing that I always throw at my clients is that always remember that signs are not signs if you're looking for them. Don't
Ah,
go
that's a good
looking.
one.
You don't go looking, because then you're expecting and you'll still doubt it. The signs will come to you when you least expect it.
Oh,
It's
okay. I've
here.
got to
And
keep my
then
eye out.
yeah, and then your
Be
inner
aware.
knowing, which we all have, your gut feeling will kick in. It's like, oh, I know that was my mom. I have no idea how I know that was her. I just know. I just know that it's her. Right. And then the signs will
Mhm.
just show up. Again, it's always when you least expect it.
Well, I want to recognize some of your friends and fans that have popped in, Heidi and Julia and Cassandra. So I'm glad that they could join us for the chat today and visit with you. So I wanted to ask you, you said that everybody can do this, but obviously everyone's not as gifted as you are and able to really, make solid connections. So, I mean, people that are thinking about maybe consulting a medium, I mean, I know there's some shady people out there that you should try to avoid? I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about consulting a medium for the first time?
Well, it's like really good question. I remember when I used to do like way back in the day when I wanted to get my name out there is I would do like the trade shows, going to all the psychic fairs, all the psychic events. And so I'd always say to people, especially when they came to my table, I always said, who feels right to you? Use your intuition. Who feels right? Follow your nudge, right? And I would make sure I'm like, no, go walk around. Make sure I'm the one that you want. But make sure you walk around first. You may most likely may come back to me, but make sure I'm the one. Now, if they're Googling and they're researching for mediums, I say the same thing because this is my belief. Your loved ones on the other side are nudging you. They know who they want to go through. They know my personal library, or they may know the other medium's personal library to communicate with. So, for example, I have a really good friend of mine who's a medium as well, and she was an emergency nurse for 30 years. And she's more conservative, and I'm more the badass. So, it's most likely then the loved ones are going to say, okay, let's go to her, to Bev. She's the one that she knows all about the anatomy. She knows about the health. She knows about real estate. She's really good with money. Whereas my library is completely different because I'm a woman of many hats. Right. So I've been the bartender. I've been the flight attendant. I've been the healer of all different modalities. I've been the actress. I've done voice work, a full-time mom. Like I've been all of that. So my library is completely different. So that's why I say, make sure you follow your nudges, what your loved ones are trying to give you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. I don't know if you're aware, there's a spiritualist town, kind of like Lilydale, but it's in Central Florida called Casadega.
I
And
have
it's,
heard of that. Yeah.
have you?
Never
When
been.
I'm from Florida, and when I was living there, before I made this big move to come out to California, I went to Casadega, and that's what I did was I drove around, and everybody has their shield out there, their
Yeah.
sign, and I kind of waited to see who felt right. And when I knocked on the door, he was like, where have you been? like
Yeah.
like he was waiting for me. It
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
I
So
did the same.
that's great advice.
I did the same when I was in Lilydale, all the little cute little cottages.
Yeah.
It's just trusting your intuition. Where's your energy being pulled to, right? And trusting that.
Lilydale, that's a bucket list.
You've
I'd
never
like to go
been?
and visit. No,
Oh,
I've
you
never been
you
there.
have to. You have to. I actually received some training there when I first started out. Um, I just went blank on her name. It'll come when I'm
It'll
not
come to
thinking
you.
about it. Yeah.
Well, in your work, you must use, some techniques like meditation, and I know you've shared some meditations on the podcast. How does that work in your personal, your personal life, or when you're getting ready to do a reading? Do you kind of do a meditation before you connect with someone, or
Yeah.
to open up the door?
To me, there's all different types of meditations,
Hmm.
right? There's the active meditations. There's sitting at my altar at meditation. There's laying with my headphones and listening to binaural beats, which is just gets you into that altered state. For me personally, actually, hold on a second. Hold on a second. For me, I actually like to use my tuning forks.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I use tuning forks. I also use, hold on a second, my essential oils, right? That's to help ground me and get me and open things up. And then I have my crystals as well, which is I have my amethyst and I have my rose quartz. So I'd like to show you, I turn the camera around, show you my altar, but so I do. I light my candle. I have the music going as well. Just depends on the mood, what kind of vibrational music I want to listen to open up the heart center and just getting into that space, calling in my spirit guides, calling in Yeshua, and just calling in the loved ones that are coming through. And so I have my usual thing that I say with them, but it's getting into that altered state. And I did have a client earlier before we came on. So it's just like that just gets me in my zen. And I'll do the same thing if I'm doing a group reading. I also invite the group, if it's an intimate group, I bring them in and do some breath work, set the intention, and create that sacred space with them, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes with large events, I feel it out. Depends if I have the time. I just feel the audience out. So
That's interesting you use sound I'm a
Oh,
big fan of sound
well,
healing, and
it's our future.
it's so powerful.
It is our future, and I placed it on my heart chakra, right? I place it, and then there's the green one. This one, it's a 528 hertz, and that's for the heart. So I put it by my ears, right? And just my aura, all of that. I know it sounds really woo-woo, but to me it
Not
works,
to me.
right? To me, it really works. And it's to me, it's very sacred. And connecting with loved ones, connecting with the spirit realm is very sacred to me. So, can I go into a session without doing that? Sure. But to me, I just feel better when I setting the space for spirit to come through. So
Right, kind of creating,
yeah.
setting the table, so to speak, for them to
Yeah.
come
And if
in.
you see behind me, oh well, yeah, this is on podcast. I got my
Yeah.
oh, yep. I don't know where I am. So I have my salt lamp there, and I put my
Oh,
lavender
yeah.
essential oil there, so I get that infused into the space as well. So
Just kinda get in the mood and
yeah,
create the space.
yes,
So, I was looking through some of your past episodes, catching up before we were talking, and on one of your episodes, you've talked about NDEs or near-death experiences, and, you had a great interview with an author named Ray Catania, that I urge people to go listen to
yes.
if they haven't heard the episode, and also catch up on your past episodes. But I was just curious to see what you thought about what people can learn from near death experiences, or if you've ever worked
Hmm.
with someone who's had that happen. What do you think about that experience?
Well, I've listened to many documentaries. That's something I've always been fascinated by. And, everyone has their own experience. And I think the biggest takeaway people have once they have an NDE, the first thing is they no longer fear death. That's the number one. They do not fear death because they've crossed over. It's the feelings that they receive or the messages that they receive. I noticed too that when they do come back, some people want to share right away, and some people are like, nope, I am not sharing this with anybody. They're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm making it up or I was hallucinating. Right. Some also, their gifts are heightened. All of a sudden, they're just like, all of a sudden, they're like, I knew this, I know that. I have no idea why. They come back with these gifts. They become healers. A lot of them become healers, and then they write about it and they become authors. And I believe a lot of them come back as messengers to say to the world, there is an afterlife. There is more. And, they change their lives in the fact that they don't let anything bother them anymore. They're come back peaceful. They visit their loved ones, or they're visited their pets, or they don't visit anyone at all, or they may have just had this sense, this feeling, this beautiful light that embrace them, and they just come back just full of love, right?
It sounds incredible. I mean, I've read a lot about NDEs and near death experiences, and something that I thought was interesting with an NDE, when people come back, like we're so we set up kind of boundaries with our consciousness, just because we can't be open to everybody's thoughts and feelings and things like that. We'd go nuts. And that when you come back from a near death experience, like some of that is released, I guess, or
Yeah.
lessened, to where that you're more open to, you know, thoughts or telepathy or people's
Mhm.
feelings, or communicating with other realms of consciousness, that kind of thing. And then that kind of made sense. Like if you're coming back from such an incredible experience as a near death experience, that you might
Mhm.
experience those heightened senses.
Yeah. I the only time I it's hard to explain, but I went through something like that in the sense of working with medicinal plants. I'm not sure if you know anything about that, but I was at a sacred ceremony in Peru, and I had this. It's it's called 5-MeO. That's the synthetic version, but then it's called a bofu, and basically it's the secretion from a frog.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I had shamans all around me, and as soon as I inhaled it, I went out and I was, like, gone, like, totally gone, and I just had the most beautiful experience of this light. Like, it was just the warmth, the love, the bliss from this beautiful light. It's like all I can say is, like, as if I was touching the hand of God, and apparently I was making all kinds of sounds. And all the shamans were running around, and apparently the sounds that I was making, like, I woke up the village. It was just a beautiful it was like they called it they were calling it like the cosmic orgasm. And I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. And my shaman was like, I want what you had. But that was probably one of the closest experience that I personally had with the that kind of realm. Just, no voices. It was the feeling. It was just being drawn into that light. Yeah, it was so magical. So magical.
It sounds amazing.
Oh, it
And I
was.
know
It
there's a
was
lot of research, into plant medicines like
huge.
ayahuasca and
And
psilocybin.
I've done 12 episodes of ayahuasca.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's a whole
We'll have to come
other
to Canada.
podcast.
Yeah,
That's
that's a
a
whole
whole
other thing. We'll have to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
after
That was
this.
all in Peru. All if you're gonna do something like that, it must be in a sacred space. Very
Yes.
yes, you can't
And
just
as a disclaimer, we'll say,
yes,
find a reputable, do your
huge.
research,
Yeah,
before you embark on anything like that. But
absolutely. Yeah.
it's interesting that all that exploration and research that was done, back in the 60s, even in the 50s, the Timothy Leary,
Yep.
Ram Dass stuff. I'm a big Ram Dass fan, so I've read all of his stuff, and how that's all being looked at again. Like the Michael Pollan book, How to Change Your Mind.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting. So, I mean, what you do is so healing, and you help people overcome their fear of death. And you talked about that a little bit. And I guess we're so afraid of the unknown, right? I mean, just from the experiences that you've had, would you say, like, if you're working with someone who might have a terminal illness or something like that, and there's um, experiments being done with psilocybin and ayahuasca for end of
Yep.
life care
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
help people overcome their fear.
Yep.
So what would you say to people who are maybe facing something like that, or have a great fear of death?
A session with me.
There
Connecting
you go.
can no, if I can connect with your loved ones and they're coming through with their messages and their validations, that gives them hope and some peace to know, okay, well, my loved ones are there waiting for me, right?
Hmm.
Calling in their guides or whomever. But if they're in a lot of, if they're like going through PTSD, anything like that, and here's the thing is Mother Aya, the ayahuasca plant calls you, the medicine calls you. So it's not for everybody, but I do suggest it. If I get it will be shown to me sometimes in sessions. And I'll say, I'm just going to plant a seed with you. And then I say for entertainment purposes only, because I'm not a doctor. And I'll say, this is what I'm getting for you. If you feel the calling for it, and it will help release the anxiety, PTSD, helps release fears. Sometimes their loved ones will come through and visit them in a session like that as well. And I've seen some people, how they were when they went in and how they were when they came out, totally different people.
The results can be
Oh,
amazing, I'm
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely. It changed me. It changed me for sure on many different levels. Many different levels. Yeah.
There's a great book I read a few years back by David Kessler, who studies,
He's on my
death
shelf.
studies. Is it
He's
visions,
on my
trips, and
shelf.
crowded rooms?
Yep.
And I was going to ask you about that. Like, in your experience of reading with people, how more than one person has come through? Like, have you experienced that crowded room?
Yeah. And we don't control that as a medium. We don't. And I do an intro all the time with all my, especially if they're new. And I'll share with them, like I'll say, I don't control who comes through. I'm just the messenger. You may have just one that will dominate the whole session. You may have a whole family reunion. You may have someone that you completely forgotten about. I've had it where I've had a couple and their ex-lovers, their first loves would come through and there's like, what? Right? So I always say, just be open. You never know who's going to come through in a session.
See, I like that message, because I think it's very comforting to know that when you're at that point, there's going to be a crowd.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a
So,
party welcoming
yeah.
you or something like that. Hey,
That's
come
why I
on, it's
say, yeah, it can be
okay.
a whole family reunion, right? And it depends on the loved one and it depends on what the client needs to hear as well. So sometimes it's not just about who they want to come through, it's who needs to come through. And when they come
Right.
through, it's messages that they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. So I do give a heads up on that too. And I usually say, leave your expectations at the door, please, and just allow your own session to unfold the way that it should for you. And usually it always works out that way. So,
Right. Well, I want to say thanks to everybody in the room here that jumped in on the Facebook Live, Cassandra and Cheryl. And I hope all of you are subscribed and followed to Helen's Spirit Chat podcast. That goes without saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get the
Yay.
listeners over there. And, hopefully you've got some new episodes coming up soon. Is there
I
anything that you're working
do.
on that
I
you could
have
share?
next week. I have Jacob Cooper. I'm excited. He also had
Yay!
an NDE, so I'm excited to have a chat with him. I already met with him through a meet and greet. What a beautiful soul! So
He
I'm excited to
is.
have him. I had a session today that I recorded, and I'm super excited to share her experience. I got her permission, so I'll be sharing hers and a past episode I'll be airing as well. And I also have a meditation lined up, how to meet your spirit guides. So that will be
Yes.
that will be an episode coming up as well.
Very exciting. Well, I look
Yes.
forward to this.
Yes,
And I
me
look
too.
forward to hearing the episodes and hearing more from you, Helen. And we're so happy that Spirit Chat is a part of the network. So glad you're talking to Jacob. And I hope our watchers and listeners today will check out your show and all the other amazing podcasters we have on the mindbodyspirit.fm podcast
Mhm.
network. So thank you, everybody, for
Thank you
watching.
for having me,
Goodbye.
Diane. Bye bye.